Welcome, one and all, to Tech Tuesday, the best way to start your early to mid work week, bringing you the latest in tech. Today is April 1st, 2025, and let's dive right into the news of the past week. Starting with this tweet from Sam Altman on March 25th, where he announced that OpenAI, or ChatGPT, had a new feature, which was to generate images. And some of the features that they claim that this new image generation model is capable of includes character consistency, text rendering, which, if you know, AI image generation is usually horrible at generating text, upload and restyle, which we will come back to, the ability to give detailed directions to the image generation, as well as transparent layers. For anyone that's familiar with these types of image generation models, you already know that most of these features have already existed in image generation for some time. However, the big breakthrough here is that ChatGPT is able to do all of those things at once in a single image generation pipeline. And this is for the first time ever, we're seeing this in a single pipeline. So, of course, people immediately began using it for a variety of things. In particular, a lot of people were drawn to that upload and restyle feature, and they were using it to, generate images of themselves, but in a bunch of different styles. Eventually, this guy here, this is the earliest instance I could find of a tweet that really blew up. This guy posted, "Today is a great internet day," and posted 4 images of very popular memes that were all restyled in the Studio Ghibli art style. So you have this family dinner meme, the classic girl smirking in front of the burning building. You've got this guy from the Olympics last year with the gun, and then of course the distracted boyfriend, all in that Studio Ghibli style. As soon as this post went viral, 2 things began to happen. Firstly, this guy went in the replies and immediately started promoting his crypto Bored Ape newsletter, but also just a swarm of these generated images in the style of Studio Ghibli began to appear, mostly memes. So just a ton of these started to pop up, and a bunch of people started to join in on the trend. And then Sam Altman posted this 4chan green text-esque post saying, "Be me, grind for a decade trying to help make superintelligence to cure cancer," or whatever. "Mostly no one cares for 7.5 years, then for 2.5 years everyone hates you for everything. And then wake up one day to hundreds of messages, 'Look, I made you into a twink Ghibli style, haha.'" Which is just wild. And the more wild thing is that this post got nearly double the views of the original announcement post for the image generation feature, which I think says a lot about what we prioritize. Even the White House joined in. They posted this on the official White House Twitter account, X account, with a Studio Ghibli-ified image of a woman who was arrested and presumably is going to be deported, which is just insane. Just insane that is a real official post from the White House. Eventually, Sam Altman, once again, tweeted that the GPUs, the OpenAI GPUs, were melting and was basically begging people to slow down while they tried to handle the amount of requests that they were receiving for image generation. And of course, the solution was just to limit it and put it behind a paywall, which is just another example of OpenAI slowly heading more and more towards the direction of a for-profit company instead of their original promise to be a non-profit company. But oh well, what can you do? I also found this funny meme from this person that said, "AI slop artists trying to draw the Ghibli art style after ChatGPT's processors blow up."
Nothing. No ideas. Useless, empty brain.
Actual good one. +2. +2 to this guy. But on the other hand, I do want to highlight this and take this very seriously. While this originally is not relating to this particular situation, I think it's important to highlight this video that somebody brought up of Miyazaki, who is the founder of Studio Ghibli, reacting to and expressing his opinions about computer-generated art.
極めて不愉快ですよね。そんなに気持ち悪いものをやりたいなら勝手にやってればいいだけで、僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。
Doesn't even know what to say.
これでもほとんど実験なので。
And he's just speechless. So, as fun as it is to, have a good laugh and generate these images, I think it's equally important to also, respect the creators of the art who you are essentially ripping off by doing this. He's saying he feels that it's an insult to his life work, which is, something we should be concerned about, something we should take seriously. But if you want my opinion on the matter, I think that we should remember the wise words of Professor Oak, which is that there is a time and place for everything, but maybe not right now. More particularly, or more specifically, not in this fight. Like, if you're gonna make little AI images for yourself and just have a good laugh, whatever, sure, that's fine, it's harmless. But I think to try and use this technology for, like, your own personal gain, for your own profit, that's when you start to cross into, like, the unethical realm, I think. But also at the same time, I think the idea that AI will entirely replace artists is completely insane. So make of that what you will, I guess. In other news, Meta announced in the past week that they will be adding a friends-only feed back into Facebook. This is a feed that shows only posts that are posted by anyone you're, like, friends with on Facebook. No algorithmic stuff, no For You page, just a friends-only feed, which is great news. This news follows some news from earlier this year when Zuckerberg said he wanted to make Facebook feel more like how it did, quote, back in the day. He said he's excited to get back to some OG Facebook. He even mentioned that Meta might have to sacrifice some of its short-term business results in order to focus on improving Facebook, which is, like, a really, honestly, good thing to hear, if we take it to be truthful. He thinks it'll take his product development in some interesting directions that maybe they haven't focused on as much in the last several years. So, like I said, focusing more on, the genuine friends connection that is supposed to be what Facebook is. Doesn't mean that they're going to be stripping away the more modern features from Facebook. So, like, there still will be those feeds that are sort of like your For You page and your recommendeds and things like that. But hopefully we will start to see a shift more towards genuine engagement and interaction between users, as opposed to the sole focus being how much time the company can take from you. For our next bit of news, we have to kind of jump back a few years before we can talk about what's happening this week. So let's go back to October 28th, 2022, when Elon Musk purchased Twitter for $44 billion. He quickly restructured the entire company. He fired tons of workers, many of whom were in leadership positions in the company, and then he slowly began replacing a lot of the positions in the company. Jump to July 23rd, 2023. About half a year later, he rebranded Twitter to X. It took nearly a whole other year in order to completely transition from Twitter to X, with the final change being the domain name, which was changed on May 17th, 2024 to x.com. However, still to this day, you will see news articles referring to it as X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. After the acquisition, a lot of new features were added to the platform, including the introduction of Twitter Blue, which was later renamed to X Premium, which allowed for longer posts, monetization on the platform, account verification, so you get your blue check mark when you get premium. And also, it would give premium users early access to another new feature, which was Grok, which was the AI chatbot created by Elon Musk's AI company, XAI. He also removed NFT profile pictures, which is, like, a huge dub. But all of this was with the goal of trying to turn what was once Twitter into a, quote, everything app, similar to WeChat, which, if you don't know, is basically China's all-in-one app. So You can use it for messaging, social media, payment, finding public services, health, booking flights and getting hotel rooms booked, and maps and everything in between. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is what happened just a few days ago, on March 29th, 2025, when Elon Musk decided he was going to buy Twitter again. Because I guess he didn't feel like he paid enough the first time. He performed what is called an all-stock transaction, which is basically he paid himself $33 billion to merge X, aka Twitter, with his AI company XAI. The $33 billion evaluation was found by valuing the company at $45 billion, which is essentially the same value that he bought it at originally, but subtracting the $12 billion in debt that the company currently has. Some argue that the valuation is too high, given how many advertisers have left the platform. But on the other hand, people have been citing Elon's ties with the Trump administration as a reason for maybe the company recovering a lot of its value in the past few months. Elon Musk says that the reason for the merge is to hopefully further integrate XAI's technology into the X app, and he's hoping to enable smarter, more meaningful experiences for billions of people. Nothing's happened yet. The merge just happened. So for now, we're going to have to wait and see where he'll take the platform next. But hopefully, it'll be in a good direction. Up next, I want you to try and think, what is the scariest thing that an AI could wear? If you said a stethoscope, I have very bad news for you. Because in the past week, Apple announced that they are planning to revamp their health app, and they plan to include a AI doctor into the health app. Development for this tool is reportedly, quote, full steam ahead, with the current plan being to release the new feature in early to mid 2026. And the new health app will collect data from devices such as the Apple Watch in order to provide healthcare recommendations, such as like dieting or exercise recommendations. Additionally, Google's AI-powered drug research branch, which is known as Isomorphic Labs, recently received $600 million in funding. Isomorphic Labs is the group responsible for developing AlphaFold, which is basically a series of AI pipelines that Google has developed, which are able to accurately predict the structures of different proteins, as well as predict how those proteins will interact with things like DNA, RNA, and other molecules. The new funding for the lab will most likely be put towards forwarding this research into AlphaFold and similar models to assist with the discovery and creation of new drugs that will hopefully be more effective and or more accessible than existing drugs. However, I personally am worried more about one of these things than I am the other. So I want you to take a second and think, of these two things, which one do you think is the one I'm more worried about? If you said Apple's AI doctor, you would be correct. To explain why, I want to play this short clip from this YouTuber, Primogen, about how AI models work. In the video, he's talking about AI-generated code, but I think this basically applies across the board, so let's take a look.
If AI is a statistical model, which it is, it has this ability to effectively gather some distribution. Now, it may be some alpha beta distribution, it may be some normal distribution, but it's able to say, hey, your words coming in typically produce this output, and so this is the one I'm going to grab for you, okay? Now, here's the problem. The middle input for programming is horse shit code, because unfortunately, the code distribution looks like this, where this is shitty code, which is also most of the code. This is good code, which is also not that much of the code. So you're going to get a whole bunch of this, and I cannot tell you how much errors I've had to experience using Copilot. It's why I dropped it.
So, like he said, the issue with this is edge cases or outliers. In AI, there's this concept of what is called independently and identically distributed, or IID, which basically means that when you train any sort of model, there is an assumption that is being made, which is that the data you train the model with will conform to some distribution, and that each data point in the dataset is not dependent on another. So what this means is that an AI in general will tend to give you the most average solution. And trying to make models that work well when this is not the case is still something that is being actively researched. Now, there is a lot more to it, but it generally holds true that, for example, if you ask an AI model what is 2 plus 3, it is trained on enough data to know that the most common answer is that 2 plus 3 equals 5, and so it will respond with that result. But the important distinction is that there isn't any actual reasoning happening in the model. Therefore, if Apple sees that, for example, your blood pressure is high, it might recommend some diet option. Meanwhile, a doctor who has actual reasoning capability might say, oh, you have high blood pressure, and also you have this condition that runs in your family. So this may be an early sign of that condition manifesting in you. Or they may see a combination of other factors that maybe the AI doesn't have access to that could indicate some rare disease, aka an outlier, that no AI model would be able to identify or correctly diagnose. Basically, what I'm saying is, I think inevitably there will be people who try to use Apple's health app as their sole source of medical information about themselves. They will suffer some consequences, and I would not be surprised if this eventually leads to Apple being sued in some manner for the way they implement these features. And then on the other hand, you have AlphaFold, which is basically just a glorified physics and chemistry simulator that has AI as a part of its pipeline. I think everyone agrees that physics and chemistry are both grounded in predictable patterns, hence why experiments are reproducible. But not only that, AlphaFold is an internal research tool. It is not directly giving any sort of health or medical advice directly to any end user. It's being used strictly for research and development, which means you aren't going to run into a situation where a person says they made a health decision because the AI said so. When you have situations where there could be a possibility of someone saying, oh, I did it because the AI said so, I think that's when you start to run into a bit of a sticky situation. Next up, we have Elon Musk coming back once again, this time with some SpaceX news. Just last night, SpaceX launched the first crewed spaceflight to perform a polar orbit around the Earth. Almost all rockets launched perform what is known as an equatorial orbit. So they orbit the Earth essentially around the equator, traveling from west to east. This is mainly because this type of orbit is much more fuel efficient because the rocket can use Earth's natural rotation to assist in gaining the speed that it needs in order to reach orbit. On the other hand, a polar orbit requires the rocket to travel perpendicular to Earth's rotation, which means it requires much more fuel to reach orbiting speed. But the crew is on a mission to perform 22 experiments with the goal of better understanding how long-duration space missions may affect human health. This includes performing the first ever X-rays in space. They are going to monitor sleep and stress patterns, as well as glucose and hormone levels within the bodies of the crew during the mission. And the crew will also not be receiving the typical medical and mobility assistance that most astronauts receive upon landing in order to hopefully better understand how the body might naturally recover from the conditions of space. Up next is actually something that is quite a few months old, but it's kind of a little bit of an update. Many of you may have seen this video here by this user Megalag, and it discusses how Honey was using really shady tactics to earn their money, essentially overwriting the affiliate codes of YouTubers and other creators whenever a coupon was applied, and instead of money for the purchase going to the creator, a cut of the sale would go to Honey, and that's how they've been able to run this company for so long. Not only that, but even sometimes if no coupon was found, Honey would still overwrite the affiliate link, which means they weren't giving you a discount, but they were still taking whoever's money it would have been otherwise. So really bad situation with Honey. But now it's been reported that since that video has released, Honey has lost basically 20% of their user base, 4 million users, following not only that video, but also a change that Google Chrome has made to their policies, which now requires the extensions to disclose the fact that they overwrite the affiliate codes. And it also prevents the extension from overwriting the code if the user of the extension was not able to gain any benefit from the extension. Basically, my advice to you is basically uninstall Honey if you haven't already, because it's been proven that it does not guarantee you'll find the best coupon code, like they claim. And if you are using affiliate links for some creator, if you uninstall Honey, you're ensuring that you will be supporting the person you actually want to support. Is that going to be actually enforced? It already is. It literally already is. They have removed the feature that overwrites the affiliate link if it can't find a coupon code. And they have also added a disclaimer or a disclosure to the Honey download that says exactly what they do. And to close out here, I just wanted to do a quick little highlight of a research paper that I found. I found this paper published to the Journal of Computer Graphics Techniques. Researchers Albin Fitchett and Christoph Peters from Intel, as well as researchers from the Walt Disney Animation Studios and NVIDIA, propose a new way to compress image data, which they are dubbing Spectral JPEG XL. It would allow for spectral images to be compressed up to 60 times more effectively than current standard compression methods for these kinds of files. Most of you probably aren't familiar with what a spectral image is, and it makes sense. There's no reason for you to know what it is. It stores the colors in the image in terms of the actual wavelengths that are producing that color in the image, as opposed to the typical red, green, and blue that most image formats store the image in. This spectral image format is particularly useful for example, astronomers to analyze gamma ray radiation to identify the chemical makeup of bodies in space, by car manufacturers to determine how their car paints will look under different conditions, and by 3D rendering specialists to render real-world optical effects, like how white light through a prism turns into a rainbow and things like that. Anyhow, the main downside to this technique is that it is a lossy compression method, which basically means that a small amount of information is lost when the file is saved using this method. But when you're talking about what is, effectively 600 gigabytes of data being compressed into as little as 10 gigabytes in some cases, I think it's safe to say that the positives probably outweigh the negatives. So that is the end of Tech Tuesday. Thank you for watching, and tune in next week to learn what happens next in the world of tech.